This is the Intermission Podcast.
We want to get to know our homeboys and homegirls and invite you into our space.
It's a whole mood of positivity.
The Intermission Podcast. Welcome back to the Intermission Podcast, A Break with Your Homegirls.
This is our new segment, part 2 of Men Are Trash. Are they?
Exactly. And we're about to do roll call real quick. I'm Jessica E. Williams, aka CEO Jake Will.
And I'm Jessie Denise.
And I'm Ivana.
So this is part 2 of our conversation. It was so good last week. Like, we didn't want to cut it. It was such unfiltered, raw conversation. So we want to give you all part 2. So check that out. Yeah. Don't just be jumping in and, getting all comfortable. And then you look up one day and you're like, wait a minute, who is this person and what's going on? Because it might be the real them. And that's unfortunate. So those are all big.
So the evolution stage?
The evolution stage, man, we could get into that. We were using the.
I love him.
We're Black women.
I hate him and I love him.
We're Black women, okay? So we be watching The Insecures, okay? Season 4 is quite the doozy. That's about season 4 is a lot about female relationships, but we'll get to that another time. So, and we just want to take Issa and Lawrence, for example. Season 1, they was going through their little thing. We won't spoil it for you if you haven't watched it, but if you're not watching Insecure,
Spoiler
alert. Spoiler alert. I don't know what you've been doing. Anywho, in this particular relationship, we find Issa and Lawrence at, a particular place in their situation, in their relationship, where they're both kind of on a struggle bus, but in different ways, if we just being 100% honest, okay? Issa had her little job at We Got Y'all, and she, had her little friendships and this, that, and the third, and Lawrence was like keeps building himself up to like do this whole app thing, and like it's not really going the way that he wants to, and he's not like comfortable just getting a regular job. Like, he's really committed to his dream. And so, we find them at the sort of impasse when we're introduced to these characters of, just comfortable with each other. Lawrence forgot her birthday. Like, it was a whole series of situations of things where he just was getting comfortable. And Issa sort of got tired of it, but hadn't really communicated that. That's the thing about, by the time we got to the end of the season, it was camp. She was either team Issa or team Lawrence. And for someone like me, I was in the middle, because you know what I said? Both of them are basura in different ways. Both of them was trash in different ways, because like we're saying, they had been in this relationship for whatever length of time. Things had changed, but as they had changed, they had never really had the conversation with each other about what was making them uncomfortable, what wasn't working. Like, Issa was talking to Molly was Lawrence was talking to all of his homeboys, but they were never really communicating with each other. And then they started bringing other people into the mix to sort of fill the holes of what wasn't being met in the relationship, which is Tasha from the bank, or Tasha from the back if you watched the show, and Daniel, who was always Issa's what if guy, right? So a lot of this was them not communicating within their relationship, then bringing other people to try to fill the holes as they're sort of like kind of working on their relationship, but not really. And then these two individuals who were outside of the relationship sort of became a casualty of war of their relationship, because they were not doing what they needed to do to make the relationship work. So that's sort of like our overarching, like, Insecure as a picture, if you want to know what this kind of looks like when you're just kind of going along to get along in a relationship and not expressing yourself the way you need to express yourself, and then bringing other people in the mix. So y'all got anything y'all want to add to that, as I just gave that summary in terms of
in regards to evolution?
Yes.
It was 5 years, right?
It was something like that. Yeah.
5 years Issa stayed with Lawrence. 5 years while he was laying on the couch.
Working towards his dream, Jess. He was working towards his dream. Some days look more productive than others.
Yes, 5 years. And then whatever happened to them, because I'm not going to tell you everything, but whatever happened, eventually they split, and he got a job at a tech company, and he just doing his thing. And then he gets snatched up by somebody else. And so I think Issa feels some type of way. Like,
She definitely feels
oh wow, I was there for the build up. Brother and man ain't did none of this for me. And now she reap all the benefits. And so I think that's like where the evolution stage where we decide to put in on that. That still won't take away from the fact that we feel some type of way about it, you know? Like she let that dude lay there for 5 years. And he forgot her birthday. Brother, what else you got to what else going, bro? You feel me? And now someone else is from the outside it looked like somebody else is reaping all these benefits, but honestly I think that he just moved.
Like Lawrence ain't that evolved.
He moved from the couch to another couch is how I feel. His own couch, you know. But yeah, I feel like she gave a lot of time though. And so I'm like, dang. But at the same time, when we're evolving, that's just something that you got to decide if you're in for it or not. The new girl that was with Lawrence, I don't think she would have been down for like a 5-year evolving. Brother, you got to be at this level and you're evolving to a new level, you know, but that ground floor, that groundwork, absolutely not. She's not for it, you know, while Issa was one that's just like, yeah, ground up grind. Let's get it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like age is a factor too with that. Mm-hmm. Because stuff I did when I was 20, 21, I ain't doing at 41. You know what I mean? Like that, these things, like to this day, my ex from when I was in my 20s, something happened when he was his last year at Howard. His roommate wasn't going to graduate. All this stuff happened with roommate, and he stopped paying his rent. It was a mess. His roommate stopped paying his rent, and so he was staying with a friend for like the last couple of days, just until like graduation and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I went down there. He had his thesis presentation.
Oh yeah.
And so I went down there for his thesis presentation, went back to Connecticut, drove back down for his graduation. Like this is all like within like the week. Went back up, I had to work and I had a kid. So I had to go back up and I had to go back down for his graduation. And I slept at his friend's house on the floor with him, right?
You see how my look was like,
that's 21 though.
That's 21. That's definitely 21 for sure.
That's 21. You know what I'm saying? And to this day though, we were both 41 years old. To this day, he was like, yo, she slept on the floor with me, y'all. Like he still talks about that. Like, yo, she slept on the floor with me. Yeah. Right? I ain't doing that now. I ain't sleeping on the floor with nobody.
I'm gonna sleep on the floor because we camping. That's why.
It's like, you know what I mean? So I feel like with Issa and them, it's like taking age into a factor. I kind of understand where she was with him on the grind and in the come up. And now they're older, you know, and because they were together 5 years, and this is some time has passed, although old girl's pregnant like for 3 seasons, but whatever. Like, was this 9 months? Well, how long have we been here? What are we doing?
It's TV time.
Right, TV time. I feel like that too plays a big, into it too, because at our ages now, like, you guys are in your 30s and I'm in my 40s. I'm not putting up with something that I put up with, even in my early 30s, like, yeah, where are you now? Like, if I'm getting and that brings us to us getting ourselves together. Like, if I'm getting myself together, there were certain things I was like, I want to have my credit in order before I get married. I want to have these things in order before I get married, and I was like, God, this is what I want for myself. And that goes into the self-reflection and digging this stuff up. And it's like, do men do the same? Like, are they sitting there like having that same in-depth conversations with themselves and with God and with other people of, what me stuff do I need to work on before I can step to her? Because for me, I'm like, I don't want this stuff like this bringing it to my husband, whether it was internal things, childhood traumas, whatever it was. I'm gonna dig this stuff up now. Like, homeboy,
working on evolving,
right? Are y'all doing that? Like, are y'all having those same dig ups? because we did me management for a year and some change.
Yes, we did.
The men's was doing stuff for 6 weeks. Like, what? Not bad, because it's great. I'm happy you're doing something, but when the men's group thingy that the men's group thingy, they were like, oh, your wives should read the book that you guys, with the program you're doing. They ain't never said read the me management book, the Breaking Free book, the Entrusted book. No one's ever told the men to read our books to understand what we're going through in this time of digging up. But we're always told, oh, you ladies, if your boyfriend or your husband or your, fiance, your husband, if they're going through this men's program, you should read their book. Okay. Wait, what?
It's a little patriarchy, but we not sips tea. It's a little patriarchal. In that, which I think is a beautiful point, in that men sometimes are not required to, I don't even want to say not required to grow. I'm trying to think of what the words are. It's like girls put a lot of emphasis, or women put a lot of emphasis on, like we're talking about self-evolution, self-growth, getting better. We're not saying all men, because there's some of y'all that are about that life, but you have to be committed to growing and evolving. But I think that sometimes there are a lot of excuses that are made for men that are not doing that. Mm-hmm. And that is somehow okay now, because like we always talk about, we know we working on ourselves, but we don't know if there's a dude out here working like we working. So who, and people getting prepared for people, who are you preparing for? Exactly. If, we out here grinding, but y'all are maybe not. And making the distinction of, my mother actually said this while we were planning and figuring out these episodes. But the idea of women putting in so much work, time, effort, etc., because we have people to teach us to do that, to teach us to value that. I don't necessarily know that men necessarily have people that teach them to value evolution, growth, maturing. I think they want it, but I don't know that there's necessarily people that are there to help them walk that walk that path, talk that talk. You feel me? Like I don't know that they necessarily have that in a way that, again, women are used to relating and communicating. Our talks, we could be on here for hours. Men be like, listen, we about to be here for 20 minutes. We about to do what we finna do, and then we about to go get some wings and play hoops. Like, they're just very like this and that about it. You know what I mean? Like, we're done. So I think that the way that we relate and communicate with one another, or in our separate circles as men and women, is very different. And so when you're trying to meet on the same plane, it's like you got to come with a different ideology, with a different brain, with a different mindset, because it doesn't mean that they maybe are not trying to do the work. It just might look different than the way that we do the work. And so we have having grace for that, to go, okay, you might not be on the phone with your dudes for 3 or 4 hours, but you are putting in the work in this particular way. And I think, ladies doing a better job of being like, okay, let me get into the mindset a little bit, but also men, meet us halfway. You know what I'm saying? Like, figure out the things that we care about, that we're concerned with. Cause I feel like that's mutually beneficial for both parties. It's not one-sided. Like, women are always doing things for men, but men ain't always doing things for women. Like, it needs to be mutual togetherness that we work like. Thoughts?
I'm really looking forward to hearing that question answered by a man, because when you're like, the way we're thinking is different, I'm like, oh, you're so right. Like, what our building looks like when we're in that stage of evolving and stuff as women. We talked about it often here. Like, I can reach out to y'all about certain things and all, and what the next step of my life looks like, right? Or if I'm standing next to the trash, y'all would tell me, and you'd be like, and this is how you move. And so it's really nice that I have y'all. And so I know what this building looks like. Mm-hmm. But I just, when you said like, they're processing, they're digging up, they're unpackaging and unpacking, and building looks different. And so I'm like, I'm really excited to hear a man tell me what that look like. But I did listen to this one man, forgot his name. He's one of the, like, a relational coach. He's married and everything. And he said, women, stop giving us excuses. I said, oh, he was on the Sister Circle. He said, huh?
Was it Derek Jackson? He always
Yes, Derek Jackson with X. And he said exactly what you were saying at the beginning, is that the requirements are different. Like, a woman has to have all these things together because we're groomed at a young age to take care of certain things. And then we give a pass to men like they're babies, and they're like, we ain't babies though, but if you want to keep on giving that pass, a lot of them are going to take it. So stop it. And I was like, oh. So when I'm sitting here thinking about, are all men trashed in this building stage, I'm like, no, I need to know, what does it look like to be in a building stage, so I can be able to say, oh, okay, that doesn't work for me. You're not trash. This is what your building looks like. Yeah. I think, Vaughn, you had an instance when we were talking about the dating app and stuff. You had a situation where someone really desired to date you, but he was in a building state and he had not accounted for anything else or anyone else. So therefore he was looking like trash because he wasn't, he didn't put his best foot forward, and he was standing next to the trash because of some of the movement he was doing. He was being cheap because he was thinking about his plans, for himself. And I was just like, ooh, see, this dating isn't for you yet right now, to the dude, because you know what I mean? And that's what you guys are talking about, like, being aware of where we're at, being honest with ourselves, men and women, so that you can present something the right way at the beginning, so then people ain't like, yo, you trash. So
yeah.
Yep.
And I think I'm trying to figure out how to be delicate about this, but again,
delicate. No, I'm just playing.
I was like, no, how be delicate?
Is it about being cheap?
no, it is not. It's not about being cheap. It is about sort of along the lines of what we're talking about in terms of, a lot of things when we talk about ego and pride and selfishness, and unpacking baggage and lack of communication, all of those things. Men are not given a lot of space to unpack emotions. It's so funny. Actually, before we were doing this, I was watching DeAndre Whitfield and Will Smith. DeAndre wrote a book called Male versus Man, and it's him unpacking the difference between a male versus when someone matures to become a man. And one of the things him and Will were talking about was the fact that, like, Will literally said this. He was like, along my journey, he was like, as a male, my I was really ambitious about winning. Like, everything for me as a male was about winning and being the best, and no one is going to beat me at being the best. And I had, like, mastered this. He was like, in terms of just my rap career, my acting career, like, I was going to be the best at whatever it is that I wanted to be. And he was saying that, like, when he had Willow and Jaden and all them, he was like, I can teach you guys how to win at, like, this particular thing, because I've leveled and I've mastered this as a male, and I know that I can teach it to you. And a lot of my, he was saying my self-worth is based on winning, and, like, I'm Will Smith, I've done all these incredible things, like, I know how to win. And he said, Willow, when she started her singing career, and she did With My Hair, which is still one of my favorite songs. I said in the Child Shall Lead, though, because that record still goes to this day. That's neither here nor there. But he said when Willow had With My Hair and she had signed to Rock Nation, and, she was being really successful, like, that song, like, skyrocketed, and they had made all these promises to Jay-Z, and she was like, nope, I don't want to do it anymore. And for Will, that was, like, a really, like, an affronted thing to be like, first of all, you're a Smith. We don't just back out of deals and things. That's not what we do. And he was like, but you're winning. Like, why would you not want to continue on this? And she was like, because I don't feel like it anymore. Like, I just don't want to do it. And so he was saying that she was sort of the first person in his life that, like, made him stumble upon, like, feelings. Like, he was like, I didn't realize that feelings was, like, a thing. He was like, I thought that everybody was sort of, like, thinking and doing and going about doing things the way that I was doing things. And he was like, and then I kind of stumbled into, like, people have emotions and feelings, and, like, when they don't feel like doing anything, they stop doing it, and they're not so gung-ho, like, we just gotta do this. And he was like, it has been a evolution for me over the last 10 years to, like, understand my feelings, understand how what I'm feeling impacts me and what I'm feeling impacts others. And little girls and who grow up to be, teenagers and women, we're allowed the gamut of emotional feelings and to be able to go back and forth with that however we want to. Where men are told to like clamp that thing down, like we don't deal with that, we're not unpacking that, we're not talking about it, or they've never seen a man that's been able to successfully do that, if they have one at all in terms of a father figure or a male figure. And so I think that sometimes men and women kind of butt heads, and that women put a lot of value on emotional health and stability and things of that nature, where men are so busy conquering things and doing things and having everything that's so external going on, that when they're trying to relate to one another, you are automatically doing this because their whole lives and their ambitions and the purposes that they feel they have that are driven, they like, feelings never account for that. Like, it doesn't matter if I feel like providing for my family today. Like, it doesn't matter if I feel like wanting, like, we got to go get groceries. Like, we got to get this money. Like, we got to get this bread. We got to do that. And so having to enter and navigate in the space where someone is asking them to relate to their feelings, their childhood traumas, unpack their baggage, communicate well, like, these are all sort of like foreign concepts to a lot of men in general. And so I think that they don't want to necessarily, again, like we said, be basura. They're just like, this isn't computing. Like, I haven't been working towards this up until now. And so this is very new territory for a lot of people. I think when Jay put out 444, like, we really realized that we always bumping Lemonade because we know that side. But when you listen to somebody of that class, stature, money making, accomplished, successful, and he like, I just don't know how to relate to my wife, like, in a way that, like, she wants me to talk about growing up in Marcy. Like, I ain't got time to go back to that. Like, look what I did. Look at all this. I came up from Marcy, like, I'm doing good. But she's like, no, you're not. She's like, you cheating, you running around, you're not here for the kids. Like, what's going on? And so I think that they are, like you said, perclimped, flummoxed, okay, stuck on stupid of like, what do you want me to do now? Like, I thought this was the thing. I thought this was the level that I was supposed to get to as a man, and I've done that. And now you're asking me for some
emotional
stuff. Like, I understand. Thoughts on that, ladies?
Yeah, man, I was always very intentional about talking to my son, to Christian, about his feelings, like, and allowing him to be very open and honest. And when he was a little thing, like, I never shut down how he was feeling, which is a whole new thing now with people. Like, kids are people too. They have feelings, which I'm like, but when we grew up, it was just like, shut up, listen, what you crying for?
Seen and not heard.
Right. And then with Christian, I was always, our communication used to be very open. And he became a teenager and I had a whole new child. But before that, before that turn, I always wanted him to be in touch with his emotions because he's sensitive like I am, and I would see that. And with a boy, that can turn into like rage or anger, or, it can just be other things. Even now, I'd be like, the other day, the laptop he wanted wasn't doing something right, and I was like, no, we're gonna come. No, we're not. No, we're not. What do you?
You're gonna
he was like, I don't care, whatever. Like, no, you do care because you have an attitude about it. What's the real issue? You know what I mean? I've always been like that parent with him, but most men don't have that, or their dad, like, because I know his dad ain't talking to him about feelings. He like, we got, what you doing, what's happening, what's your life looking like, you know what I mean? Like, those are the things, because men are taught to provide, they're taught to take care, they're taught to make sure their families are taken care of and are covered. They're not really taught to, well, you have to dig deep into your feelings and how are you feeling this week? No, get up, go to work. Like, that's always been the thing. Women, you take care of the children, men, you go out and the gather and the hunter, whatever. But men don't really have that. Like you said, they're not really given that space. We have all the books in the world. I hope every man gets this book. I heard the book is really good too, DeAndre Whitfield's book. Every man gets a book. We're gonna put that in a link too.
Get the
y'all.
book. Get the book. We'll put the link.
We'll put the link in the bio. I'm making it for Christian. Like, you know what I mean? But I feel like we have, whether you're a Christian or not, there are books, self-help books, all the books that women need to get their lives together. You know, I'm reading a book right now, some of my girlfriends, and it's just like, and it is a Christian book, but anybody could read it. It's called Get Out of Your Head. But you know what I mean? Just like get out of your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions, and to get out of here and get out there. But we just have so many things that are always geared towards self-help for women. But men, it's just like,
yeah,
where y'all books at? Where y'all classes at? Where your discipleships at? Like, where are those things? And do you want that? Like, you have to be accepting, and you have to want that type of mentorship. Because I remember I was like, I really want like mentors. You need mentors, I feel like, for every space of your life, no matter how old you are. Like, I mentor the teens at my church, but then, Jess, your mom mentors me. You know what I mean? And it's just, we had a Zoom call with our little sisters, and then us grown folk had a Zoom call with our aunties. You know what I mean? And Jess was there too. And you know what I mean? So it's just like the level, I appreciate that with my church, because we had that like level of mentorship for the women and the men. The men, they be in that prayer room for hours. I appreciate it. We be done. We be in and out of our prayer time on Saturday mornings. The men be in there tarrying for hours. I'm like, praise the Lord. But it took a minute to get there. It took Pastor Chuck being by himself in there for a while and being at the pulpit like, man, where y'all at on Saturday morning? It took a minute. It took him having to like rev that up, because he has that like, that fatherly spirit or whatever. But it took him having to be like, yo, where y'all at? Like, the women's prayer is packed. Where the men at? Like, why are we not in our faces like they're in their faces every Saturday morning? And they are now, but you need that leadership, but you also want to have a heart to want to be that. Because if you don't want to be that, then it's like people can have all the classes, and that may be a thing too. If there's not a need or a want, like, why am I going to create a class if nobody shows up? Maybe that's happened. They've had classes or whatever for men to go to, and then 2 men show up, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, what?
No, I went to we have a thing called Vision of Life at church, and on the 4th Sunday, women can go to that. It was mostly women. Right. Yeah. It was a business one. And I was like, ooh, business one? I'm going. I just started my business or whatever. I was like, well, I'm definitely going to that one. It was mostly women there at the thing. But it was the men's group that we can go to once a month, and all the women were there. And I'm like, and one woman, she didn't go to Hope's house. Her and her husband came, and I was like, they don't even go there. I know her, but she don't go to Hope's house. I mean, she comes, but she's not, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I was like, where are all the people's at?
I mean, it's like, you have to have a certain level of personal responsibility, right? To your own growth, to your own evolution. You gotta want it, right? And so I think for a lot of men, like that's a decision. Honestly, if we could say anything, like no woman can make that for you. Like as a male, you know what I mean? As the spirit of whoever you are that God has put into a male body, like you are responsible for the outcome of how you mature and evolve as a man. Like no person is gonna do that for you. I think sometimes when people have kids, like they ratchet up into another level of maturity because it requires that. Wow. But like even if you don't have that, like you're worth investing in and making sure that your life is of the best quality that it can be. Like you're worth growing and evolving into something amazing. And I think that that's super important, that you have to make that decision for you because nobody else can do it for you. And to your point, Vaughn, you talked about modeling, and that a lot of men, period, Black men, we could talk about specifically, are often lacking in mentorship, leadership, a model, like you said. Pastor Chuck started doing it first, and then they were like, oh, he's doing it, we're gonna model after that. Like if you see it, you can be it. That's like cliche, but it's also very true. Yeah. And so I think the more that we see men, but also men and women, people who are on the evolutionary track from basura, trash, to greatness, you know what I mean, the walk away from the garbage, that as you see men and women who are daily and, regularly, consistently working on their communication and knowing themselves and being better, as they are consistently working on processing their baggage, either from past relationships or childhood traumas. And as you see people who are actively dealing with the emotions of ego, pride, and selfishness that come along with, just regularly evolving. I think, Vaughn, a lot to your point about Christians specifically, men are allowed to be angry. That's usually the emotion that they're allowed to feel without it being an issue. That, as little boys and little girls up until like 10 or 11, like they're pretty much, you know what I mean? Like they scrape their knee, they both cry, like it's not really a thing. But once they hit them preteen years, you really start to see the separation and the difference because other men are putting on, the expectations of a boy to start to clamp down on those emotions, start to, you know what I mean? She could deal with that, but you don't deal with that. You know what I mean? And it's not like their feelings and emotions go anywhere. They just are actively practicing shutting them down on a consistent, regular basis. And so I think that, as a society, and I think we're starting to do it, but we still struggling. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that, if you crying, that's female. I'm like, no, if you cry, that's human. It's not specifically a female trait. Everybody cries, right? If you are, engaging in therapy or whatever, like that doesn't make you soft. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is the onus of us societally and collectively in our communities, allowing men the space to start to engage these things without being like, well, are you gay now? Or are you metro now? Or are you bi now? I'm like, girl, he's trying to unpack some things with you. Just be there for him. Like, you know what I mean?
Let him unpack it.
Yeah, like let him have this time without you being like, oh no, I don't like that. Like, girl, come on now. So I think it's a lot of us, providing those spaces and those opportunities for men to get these kinds of things off their chest and start this journey in evolution without us side-eyeing you the whole time. And to encourage people to do that.
Right.
Because that's why a lot of communication doesn't happen, is because we side-eye or we shame them from trying to let their emotions out or trying to unpack something. And they thought they were in a safe spot, and then you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Did you just cry?
Yes, girl, he did. Let that man cry.
Well, can you just keep that one to yourself that he cried and protect that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even bringing it back to, what we were talking about in terms of the foolishness of the week, right? When we talk about Black men specifically. And we all have certain levels of PTSD, right? Like these continual killings of Black and brown people consistently, like that's traumatizing to all of us in very different ways. But women, we usually have the space to be able, like we did at the beginning, to unload and dump or whatever. Most men probably aren't having that conversation. They just are scared. They feel like their life is in danger and they're not necessarily unpacking it. And so I definitely think when it comes to Black love, specifically, you have a whole nother layer on top of all the stuff we already mentioned of racial trauma, systemic trauma. You know what I mean? You have Black and brown kids who were kicked out of class because they were, quote unquote disruptive, but you have no idea what was going on at their house. You know what I mean? In domestic violence situations or police raids or being pulled over and stopped all the time or stopped and frisked, or like there's a whole other layer of situation that, also stops these three things from getting into gear in certain communities, and, taking that into account, into consideration too, that just like people suffer from a lot of different layers of things, and you got to be sensitive to that kind of stuff as you engage as well. So it's a lot is what we're trying to say. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I just had a whole flash back to slavery and them separate, because I'm like, the black man and the Black woman were always strong, right? Like as a unit, as a family unit. And over time, society tried to make it seem like the Black man was trash.
Right.
But when you go back to slavery and them separating our great-great-great-grandparents and putting them in different homes, and you know what I mean? Like they started then, like separating us and destroying our homes. They started doing that, and then it just kept going and going and going. And then you go into the 50s and the 60s, and sorry, I can go all.
No, it's
my history. The history buff in me is like
Fabulousness, yeah.
And And you got to bring that kind of stuff up because, and again, that's systemic. It's like, because Black men were not complicit to watch their women and their children be brutalized. So it's like instinctually as a man, they wanted to raise up on Massa and be like, what are you doing? But that's bad for Massa. So like he has to make an example of that person. That's when you get into, you know, public castrations and lynchings were even like that. When they would be lynching people, they would make people's wives and kids watch that happen because they wanted them to know, I don't care if you got a man in the home. I could dead that dude. Do you understand me? Like I the white male, me, you know, my white wife, my white kids, like we own y'all. We're in control of y'all, and there's nothing that you'll ever do to get rid of us, right? So even when we see those things now, that's still them trying to be like, it doesn't matter how good you are, how much money you make, what kind of student you are, what kind of nothing. Like I can still come in here and I can dead y'all. I can take away all that Black happiness, Black love, Black joy, whatever you're trying to have. And in terms of, you know, selling people's kids off, selling people's husbands off, selling people's wives off, you know, people, the masses having, and their wives having sexual relations with slaves and them having kids, and that, you know, the whole miscegenation thing is a whole other situation. Having mandingos, which is kind of where we get like fatherless homes from, which was, you know, Black babies were profit for white people. And so the more Black babies you have, the more opportunity you have to sell them off. So whether the white man is helping make these sort of, you know, mixed miscegenated babies, or, you know, you have men who are mandingos who, you know, they had slave breeding camps where like there were people that just bred and had sex with slaves, period. Like that's all you did. They even have stories of people having sex with their own mothers. Like, because they like, we just want the baby. We don't really care about your feelings, your emotions, none of that. But constantly taking the Black man out of the position of power because I have to be higher in your mind, as a culture. I am, the white man is God. The white man is, you know what I mean, king, and he's always going to be king, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that, you know, that definitely affects with your communication, unpacking your baggage, and all the emotions thereof. You know what I mean? And so I think as a community, we got to help each other heal like that. Black man to Black woman. Because it's a lot of stuff that to unpack, man. So I don't know. Anything else? Because we done got.
What can a woman do? What are some things that these ladies can do to help their brothers or the man standing in front of them know that they're close to the trash, or to help them as they are trying to evolve? One thing that I would say is that we, as ladies, have to be honest, but also understanding.
Yes, come on.
So the understanding part is he may not fit in your box. That does not make him less than. Whoever he is, it's a wonderful thing who he is. There's beauty in exactly who he is. Don't try to change it. You know, don't try to fix this person because you want them to fit in your box. Right. You need to let people be who they are, right? So have understanding for what's in front of you and what they're saying. Give it time so they can, you know, you can see who they are, and then be honest with them, but with sensitivity. So if he is standing next to the trash, let's take, for instance, if y'all went to a date or something and the expectation is that a guy would pay for that, and we're on the third date and he invited me and da-da-da-da-da, you know what I mean? Like, and you want to say something, you know, like, oh my God, you cheap little da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, being mindful of how you're to say this, and the heart in which you say it in, and the heart that's receiving it. I think like you said, like there's so many expectations for the man, like, you know, there's the expectation within our community as a Black man, and then there's the expectation outside in America, and then there's the survival mode. So there's a lot of things that they and we have to deal with. So at the very least, when they come into community, meaning with another Black woman, we should cover that. And that is a big charge. If we would actually think like, all right, unless he my man, until he my man, he my brother.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm going to cover this. Yes. And so the charge to be honest with ourselves and care about this person in front of us. Because I mean, like, I'll take it down. Like when I went on a couple of dates, they wasn't working out for me, but I did not drag them through the mud. You know,
Right.
some of them we still cool. Like I hit them up right now, you know, like, and it would never be. It's never gonna be. But who they are is their journey. They're in their journey of life. And the
Right.
least I can do is come and be a positive Black woman to say,
Right.
hey, bro, you got this.
Yep.
I'm in a dude who's in the industry, and a lot of Black people aren't in my industry, and they're in scripted world. I was like, bro, you got this, you know? And it was nice to be able to say that. Now, his life did not, it would not fit with my life at all. You know, it was a lot of weird stuff. But I was never going to say that to him. Like, oh my God, your life is so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Life and his journey. Like, how dare you, you know? So that's one of the things that I would like to encourage us as women. Tell your brother and just be mindful of the heart in when we're saying it.
Mm-hmm. I guess one, knowing your worth, knowing your worth, because if you know your worth, you're not going to put up with crap. And so it would be harder for a trash Negro to infiltrate your life. If you know your worth and you stick by your word and what you say and what you do and who you are, you know what I mean? Like just knowing who you are as a woman. And also for the brothers, just being honest with where you are. As opposed, like if you don't want a relationship, then tell them. If you just want to talk to people, tell them. If you're just dating people to figure out who you like, just tell them. Like just be honest so that no one has an expectations. Because when you are talking to someone or you are, you know, dating someone, you have an expectation, and the expectation needs to be set up front. And so then no one's feelings can get hurt. Oh, your feelings somebody get hurt if you try to dig in too deep and you even know whatever. But your feelings shouldn't get hurt if you know from jump, like, this is what it is. This is what I expect. This is where I am. You know, because a few months ago, I wasn't trying to have no boyfriend. I was just talking to people. I was just dating people. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm trying to figure out who I like. I mean, I'm kind of still like that. But, you know, I'm getting more to the point where it's like, okay, I just want to talk to one person. But I can't be like, okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna act like he the only one I'm talking to, and if he really ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like just being honest with where you are, because she'll appreciate the honesty.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And we can't that brothers, that's how you protect yourself from someone saying you trash. You be honest up front. So then when she try to be like, oh, you trash, and she try to drag your name and your reputation through the dust, you can be like, I got the receipts, baby. You know, that's not what we talked about this from jump. I did not deceive you, honey. You know, be honest.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think self-investigation. I think that's the key. You know, you got to know what's going on with you so that you can communicate it to someone else. Listening, I think that's key. And we've already talked about that a bit, but really do your best to like listen to people, like the actual words that are coming out of their mouth now, not what you think they saying or what you want them to say or what you wish they were saying. Like really listen to what they actually saying to you, because then you can save yourself a lot of time, energy, heartache, and pain, because you didn't have the movie playing. You really listen now, because you know when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. You'll be out the woods. And then to your point, just I think offering friendship, man. I think that in this world where people, and we talk about it too, you know, are so anxious to be booed up or in relationship with people, they negate the fact that like there's a lot you can find out about people just befriending them, and I think that men and women can learn a lot about each other just in that relationship. If it escalates to something else or turns into something else, that's fine. But in terms of that mixed match of like, we come into this thing at two different levels and playing fields, there's a lot of things that you'll just kind of know off jump if you have a male who is a friend that you could just like run things by and talk through, and it's not gonna turn into like, well, you know, that he ain't treating you right, then let me, like, nah, bro, like, we just set the boundaries outright, and like, this is what we're having, so that I can have that communication between us, so that things aren't, sounding like outer space talk or some other situation where it's not making sense. And I would encourage men to do the same thing. Like, don't always be so quick to get in the draws, bruh. That's not always for you. You feel me? So like you're missing out on the opportunity of knowing some really cool women and women knowing some really cool men if you just always constantly hiding the pants. Like, really get to know people and understand them and listen to them and offer that community in that space, like Jess said, that we can have a place to heal and be better and challenge each other to be great. Because that's the point, right? Like, we don't know how long we're gonna be here. We don't know how long we have, and we all want to have a dope experience while we're here and be the best that we can be. Hopefully, if you made that decision. If not, after this episode, we hope that you're making a decision to step it up, level up around here. Because that's what we always trying to encourage people to do. So with that, man, let's work on our communication. Let's unpack this baggage, man. Let's work on our ego and our pride and our selfishness as men and women. And shout out to the men that are already doing this, that are already on this journey. We commend you. We salute you. We appreciate you.
We know a lot of solid men.
Yes, we do.
We know a lot of solid men. We are blessed because I know women who don't know them. Like, we know a lot of solid dudes. So I think that's what gives us the perspective of like the trash and not trash, because we have the comparisons of the men that we know who are not trash and the ones that we know who are.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we gotta, come on, man. I'm telling you, we can do this, man. Like, we can really do this. We can really build. That's what this is about, building a community of people who are spurring each other to be more and to be better. And we do, thank God, know a lot of solid dudes. And we're grateful for that. And for women who are on this journey as well, man, like it's all possible. It's all great stuff. So I think that's it, man. I think that's it for today's episode. We appreciate y'all stopping by. Listen, y'all not gonna want to miss next week. Y'all not gonna want to miss it, okay? Because this is the homegirls perspective, you feel me? And we're working on helping our homeboys expand, become better. You know what I mean? Be better people, level up. But we are actually gonna have our homeboys. These are our real, true to life homies, okay, that we about to have next week, to let the men speak for themselves, okay? That's the other thing we can leave y'all with. Yes, we have our opinions. Yes, we have our perspectives. But then, of course, let the men talk, okay? Let them share their perspectives, their opinions. We're going to bring up some of the things that we brought up in this episode. Hit us. I'm going to say this. Hit us in the Gmail. Ask your questions. We know y'all got them. We might get to them. We might not. I don't know yet. We haven't planned that far out. But, if you got some questions based on what we talked about today now, this ain't about to be, we ain't Dear Abby. You don't get to just write us about your whole situation with your man and y'all in quarantine right now. You don't know, girl, no. About what we talked about in this episode, today. Men and women, what we talked about today, okay, our 3 points and the like. And then we'll see if we can get some of those things answered. And we love y'all, man. This is what we do. We trying to share and do more and do better. So, men are trash. Are they? Not really. That's what we say.
Not really.
Anyway, y'all have a lovely time. We'll holler at you next time.
Bye.
We'd love to hear from our homies, so feel free to email us at intermissionhg, as in homegirls, that's intermissionhg@gmail.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at intermissionhg. Until next time, this has been A Break with Your Homegirls.